Hello and welcome to the weekly update. Hope you're all keeping well. We're going to have a very quick look first and foremost at the Bitcoin chart and see how things are panning out there. And then as usual, we look at the events for both crypto and the macro environment to try and see where to from here. So as you can see in the chart here for a start, again, to reiterate and what we've seen over many months at this stage, about 8 months now of overall sideways action, but it has been during that time in a generally downward motion. But we have seen in more recent times, if you look at the first blue arrow here, it was the first time we'd had a higher low, which is positive. Following that, the second blue arrow was a higher high, and we were keeping very much a close eye to see what would happen here, roughly around where the green arrow is, to see is this, was that going to be proven to be another higher low, or would it make its way back down? Of course, since then we've seen it make its way up here to the red arrow, which is now another higher high. So now what we can say we have is a low, high, higher high, another higher low, another higher high, which is, of course, very much a reversal of the trend that was there for the last 8 months, and very, very positive for Bitcoin and the overall crypto market. What has happened since? Well, at the red arrow there, it has just touched off a point of resistance. You could say the last point of resistance before Bitcoin would move towards, going towards an all-time high and potentially beyond. It got rejected off that, as you probably would expect. From here, what's likely to happen? It either will make another attempt to go up and go through that. If it were to do that, you'd expect it to get above, come back and test it as support. If that was positive, then it's highly likely to go off and go to all-time highs and beyond, which of course would be hugely bullish. However, if it makes another attempt and fails, it's likely to come back down, and then it's a case of, will it maintain its previous higher low, or will it go below and reverse this trend once again? So, of course, what could cause it to move in these different directions? Of course, there's always something new and always different possibilities. But there's certainly a lot to be positive about with regards to the movement of Bitcoin. The other thing I want to just point out to your attention as well, this yellow line, this is the 20-day moving average. So it's the average of where the price was over the last 20 days. Likewise, this purple line is the 200-day moving average. And I just want to show here, you can see here the yellow, the 20-day moving average went below at this point, below the purple line. And now you can see that it's just about touching off the purple line again, possibly going to cross back over into positive territory. Why do we care? Why would that matter? Well, if you look back in history, the previous number of times it's done this has proven to be hugely bullish sign. So you can see way back when. So this is going back to 23, the start of 23. You can see at this point here, the yellow crosses above the purple line. So the 20-day moving average goes higher than the 200-day moving average. And as that happens, you can see we've had a positive movement there from, around the 20,000 mark up to the 31,000 mark. So a positive move for Bitcoin. The next one's even more definitive. If you look here again, the 20-day moving average goes below the 200-day moving average, goes sideways for quite a while, and then they cross over here. At this point, it crosses over when Bitcoin's 27,000, and it moves all the way up to about 74,000. So a huge move to the upside. So here we are again. We've seen the 200-day moving average go below the 200-day moving average, and it's just now about looking like in the next couple of days that this will cross above. What does it need to do? If the price action stays above in this general neck of the woods, then that 20-day moving average will move above the 200-day moving average, and the last two times that has happened, it's been hugely positive for the Bitcoin price. So we'll be watching this space very closely in the price action here very closely over the next days and a couple of weeks. So into the macro. In the macro, again, first of all, we see the presidential election. So the prediction markets now there's a gap really starting to open. Going back to around October 10th, it was pretty much 50-50 and had been for weeks before that. Now there's a real significant gap starting to open. And at the moment, it's 56% Trump, 44% Kamala Harris. Of course, there's no guarantees with that. These things can change very dramatically with a certain piece of news as we go along. Who's to know? But it is interesting, if we go back to the charts, that, this happened around October 10th or so. If you go back to the charts and look at this green line, this blue line down here, you'll see that it was in around that time that we seen Bitcoin starting to move. Why? Well, most people believe that Donald Trump is very positive for risk-on assets and the policies he's going to bring into place for, as I say, risk-on assets. The stock market has moved very positively since then, but equally, Bitcoin has moved very positively since then. So people are pre-running the idea that if he's to get into office, that it would be very positive, and therefore they're front-running it, getting in ahead of it, and the price has moved already. There are other reasons why you might see the market go up. It's not just down to the elections, but certainly that's one point. We can also see the S&P 500 has been hugely positive all year. It's hit its 46th record high in 2024, and it's up over 23% for the year so far. So hugely positive movement for the market overall. Can it keep going with that? Can it maintain that? Again, most people will see the likes of Trump coming in being positive towards that if that were to happen. But there are certainly other reasons, and one, of course, is the predicted upcoming Fed rate cuts. Of course, we had a 0.5% rate cut in the last run. Many people, in fact, the vast majority now are expecting a 0.25% rate cut towards the end of this month. So will that happen? We'll see, but it's very much predicted. The China stimulus, we'll touch on that in a minute. And of course, people believe that there are shrinking odds of a US recession. So just on the Fed rate cuts, you can see here it's moved from 80% expected at 0.25% just last week. Now that's up to 96% and above believe that there's going to be a 0.25% rate cut. So it seems to be very much baked in. So that, of course, again, is seen as being very positive for the risk-on assets such as the markets and Bitcoin. What else can we see? Well, Bitwise has come out and said there's 4 key upcoming catalysts as to why we should be very positive again about Bitcoin and crypto. Again, touching back on the elections. Just elections in general have uncertainty around them. And so if you if that uncertainty is taken out of the equation and we actually know who's in place, then that removes one piece of uncertainty, and that's positive for the markets. Add into the fact that most people see Trump as positive towards the markets, then you have, a plus as it would be seen. And again, it appears people are front running that. Also, you can see that there's rate cuts happening all over the world. Global monetary policy is easing. The Fed is cutting interest rates. They've already done it and has predicted another 0.25%. We've seen China has just unleashed 250 billion in economic stimulus where they are, and that had a huge effect on their own markets. And global liquidity measures are at all-time highs. So basically, there's much more money coming into the system, and money is getting cheaper with the rate cuts. And that, of course, is usually positive for risk-on assets such as crypto. On top of that, we see the ETFs have been fundamentally positive for Bitcoin and others. And the Bitcoin ETFs have so far brought in just under 19 billion. In fact, by now, that's probably over 19 billion. So this is usually positive. And again, they're stating, we believe this could lead to banner periods for ETF flows in Q4 and 2025 and could potentially drive prices up to all-time highs. So another reason why that Bitcoin looks like it's going to do really well, and then you would expect to bring the rest of the crypto market with it. And on top of that, then they foresee that there's going to be a lot of killer apps, as they call them, that will bring a lot more attention to the crypto space as well, in the areas like, obviously, stablecoins are huge, things like DeFi, DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure, and of course the prediction markets, which are doing extremely well as well, all bringing more attention to the crypto space, which can only be positive. So on top of that, we see that investors like crypto, around 45% of US investors surveyed have stated an intent to invest in US crypto ETFs over the next year. This is, second only to equity. So that's usually positive. On top of that, you have hedge funds. A survey of 100 traditional hedge funds found that 47% now have exposure to cryptocurrency. That's up from 29% in 2023. So again, a huge move in that direction. And then we have the news that Stripe, one of the biggest payment providers in the world now, that they're now accepting stablecoins from over 150 countries. The buyers pay in USDC, so you can now go on buying USDC, but the receivers, the sellers, the businesses will receive USD, actual dollars, and they don't need to set up a wallet or anything to do with crypto. They can accept it without having to do anything in the back end themselves. Stripe are providing that service. This is huge news. Why? Well, first of all, Stripe process 1 trillion worth of transactions, and 739,000 or 56% of all active websites using Stripe are based in the US. So what does this mean? It basically means that a huge amount of US businesses are going to be in a position to be able to accept this stablecoin and therefore crypto without having to do anything in the back end themselves. And if, that's a huge amount of revenue that finds its way back into the underlying blockchains, Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, and so on. So this is all massively positive news in the crypto space and indeed in the macro space. So all up from here, well, here's another piece of ETF news. So far, this week has been incredible, for Bitcoin ETFs. You can see the various inflows here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all hugely positive. A net inflow for this week with just 3 days is 1.39 billion. Is that a big deal? Well, yeah, of 8 out of 560 ETFs that were put forward this year, just 8 of them have done $1 billion in the whole year. Bitcoin has done it in 3 days. Just the last 3 days. So there's a massive demand now for Bitcoin and Bitcoin ETFs. We're now at an all-time low of the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges. And, usually when Bitcoin's put onto an exchange, it's often with the idea to sell it. There's less and less and less being sold, meaning there's less available to be bought. Yet it appears the demand is going up and up. And we know what happens there. If you increase demand massively, reduce supply, it usually is extremely bullish for the price of that asset. And as we know, and we've seen this one numerous times before, after elections, certainly in the last number of cycles, Bitcoin and crypto has gone up massively after the election. Of course, the election now is only a few weeks away. There appears to be a very clear direction as to who the next president may be. But of course, a lot can happen between here and then. So it appears that it's all positive, everything's bull on, and we go from here. Possibly, but we still have to keep an eye on what might be. So overall, for me, it does now appear to be that we are moving to a point in time where all the pieces are coming to place for Bitcoin to truly take off and go into this bull run that many have predicted. We've had that sideways action for 8 months. The longer you have a sideways action for, once Bitcoin moves outside of the range, it should move very hard. Whether that's up or down remains to be seen, but certainly everything we've just looked at today would suggest that the road forward is very, very positive for Bitcoin and crypto in general following that. Is it a guarantee? Of course not. There's plenty black swan events that could happen out there. Of course, black swan by definition is something that we can't predict. There's also plenty of things out there that we are aware of that certainly could have an effect. Of course, we've got wars around the world. If there was to be a significant escalation in one or more of those wars, that of course would highly likely affect the markets in a negative way. On top of that, you've still got the yen carry trade as a risk factor out there. And of course, much of this positivity is based on the idea that there's going to be no recession in the US. But yet we've seen, while there was a huge uptick in job numbers in the last one, many would predict that it won't be so strong this time. That could have a negative effect. On top of that, it's predicted that the interest rates will continue to come down and we'll see a 0.25% reduction in the next one. Maybe that doesn't happen. We've already seen inflation ticked up in the last time it was reported. What if inflation starts to tick up even more? What if the jobs market shows not to be quite so strong as they thought? On one hand, it would require a rate reduction. On the other hand, it may require to stop reducing rates, or maybe if it continues upward over the next few months, they have to go higher again. If this were to be the case, we could have much trouble ahead. But taking all that into account and bearing in mind the incumbent president and President, and Kamala Harris looking to be a new president, the party in place would look for a really strong economy. And I believe they're going to do whatever it takes, including applying pressure to the Fed, to try and stimulate a strong economy and give them every chance to get re-elected as a party. What does that mean? I believe everything they can control, they will control to ensure a positive economy and therefore a positive market. And so it's likely that we do see this upward movement now with Bitcoin over the next couple of months and certainly into next year. That does not mean we can't have a significant pullback beforehand, but it looks like the overall trend for me now will be upwards from here. Like I say, maybe a strong pullback first, but then upwards from here into a hugely positive bull run. And then I think we see the economic and macro figures playing out and we see a completely different market after that. But for now, it looks extremely positive, but do keep an eye out for potential black swan events as we go. Thank you.